G'day guys, Devo here, the Chief Devastator of the Devastation Broadcast Nation. And I've got to admit guys, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about Doom the Dark Ages. You know, on the reg, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, what is this game going to be like? And then when I'm thinking about that, I start projecting my own hopes and wants and selfish needs onto what the game could be. I've spent the last 8 years playing Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. I'm on a bit of a journey with Doom 2016 at the moment with my no-hit run. And in between that, I've done mods and challenge runs and speed runs of Doom Eternal. And I love the games. And I have some hopes and wants and needs. And in this video, selfishly, I'm going to indulge myself in some of those. And we'll just have a bit of fun and talk about what the game could be and where it could go. And who knows, when it comes out, hopefully id Software have made the game they want to make. And they've been able to make it to the extent that they want to make it. If any of the developers end up listening to me talk here, I wish you all guys the very best in these last months, this final stretch that's imminently upon us, and I hope you guys get to do exactly what you want to do. But in this video, I'm going to take the liberty of talking a little bit about where I hope the game goes, and some of the things I hope that have been iterated on since Doom Eternal, and in particular since the Ancient Gods Part 2. So let's start off with a big one, the level design, and I guess the overall sort of mission level progression structure that Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal have taken on. So the way that works in those two games is you have one mission and it's one level. So it's one play space that's been designed specifically for that mission. So, you know, you have Foundry, and then you have Facility, and then you have Tower, and then you have Cadanger. Or in Doom Eternal, you would have Hell on Earth, and then you'd go to Exaltia, and then you'd go to Cultist Base. I mean, the Doom Hunter base was a bit different, you know, like logically connected onto Cultist Base, but they're all very separate, disparate experiences. And, you know, I think that's fine. If you look at how Valve makes games, that's how they make games. They make, you know, individual bits, and then they find out how does this make sense? How can we connect this all together? And I think that definitely happened with Doom Eternal. You know, when we first saw the game, we saw the Mars, Phobos, space installation segment of gameplay. And that looked like it was going to take place way earlier in the game because you get the plasma rifle, but obviously it had to be moved into a very different spot. And that all makes sense. You've got to iterate, you've got to change things, you've got to get it to a point where it makes sense. But it would be really nice to see id Software move from this sort of disparate individual level mission structure into something maybe a little bit more sprawling. I'm not talking open world, but bigger sprawling spaces with more open-ended exploration. So, you know, if you think about maybe if you've played Black Ops 6, you've got that mission in the Middle East where you're exploring a region and there's different bases, and you can kind of, it's not full-blown open world, it's not, you know, finding towers and doing that sort of mundane stuff. It's, hey, here's a sandbox, go and explore, go and find things, get things that upgrade your powers, and then go back to different areas and redo them. That kind of thing is really fascinating to me. I think a better set of examples is probably something like Control or Sekiro. Those two games take place they're not open world, but they're these big sprawling spaces with lots of exploration, and you can go and get upgrades and then bring those back to earlier areas, and you can unlock other places earlier in the game that you might have found, do deeper exploration of those places. A more niche example that's really close to my heart is Shadow Man. That game's amazing. It's one of the most underrated games ever, most underrated Metroidvania action adventure games ever. And like that model to me, I'm very biased. Like this whole video, I'm going all in with the bias and the selfish needs and wants. But if some little elements of those can drip down into Doom the Dark Ages, I think it's a low-hanging fruit for the game to kind of innovate on the modern Doom. It's going to be a trilogy. It seems like it's going to be a trilogy at this stage of games, right? Because the combat has been stretched so thin. We've got, you know, all these different mechanics in the combat sandbox now, but the exploration, I would say, has actually become more conservative in Doom Eternal. You know, the way that missions are built and to be explored has become more reserved compared to Doom 2016. Doom 2016, we had levels like Foundry and Facility, and these levels you could drop in and they weren't full-blown hub and spoke. They were actually, the branching paths were much shorter and converged onto one another, but it gave you this sense that you could approach different parts of the level in your own preferred order. It was very, very cool. And so hopefully we can see that kind of approach to mission design, level design, come back into Doom the Dark Ages. I just think it'll be a little bit more immersive, you know, have a bigger focus on exploration, which was always a big part of the Doom games, and I think kind of maybe got left behind a little bit in Doom Eternal. Yeah, there were secrets, but there wasn't really that sense of exploration. There was definitely awe for sure, just because some of the scenery and everything was just so over the top. But I think that we can bring that exploration element back into the gameplay. That'll be awesome. One of the other areas I wanted to talk about was some of the enemy design, in particular in Doom Eternal. Obviously, we saw the introduction of the Marauder, which your mileage may vary depending on your opinion of that enemy. I think they're okay to a point, but I think with Tag 2, they really iterated on that archetype of enemy and introduced the Armored Baron, which I thought was just a far, far better take on that type of enemy, because you had a number of different ways you could deal with that enemy it was designed around doing that. Of course, the Marauder, there's so many different ways to kill a Marauder, but for most playthroughs, and if you're looking at the way that the enemy's designed, there's really only one way to deal with them. Imagine if we had different tiers of Marauder, like the Doom Hunter. Instead of just having this one flat tier of Marauder, there's different tiers. If there were a boss tier, which is the one you fight in Arc Complex, but then there's maybe lower tiers where maybe he doesn't have the ability to summon dogs, or maybe he doesn't have a shield, but he can summon 2 dogs, and shooting both the dogs will give you a stun on him. Like that giving players that sort of optionality to deal with an enemy, I think will make that enemy mesh better into the overall design of combat and the way that enemies' abilities overlap with one another in Doom, because I feel as though the Marauder was really designed to be this big chess piece that can do a lot of different things. But obviously we then saw that enemy get incorporated into more kind of common combat scenarios. He would crop up in regular arenas rather than in a boss fight or anything special like that. That kind of took away from what made that character unique and actually made them somewhat aggravating to deal with, because instead of dealing with them, you would just ignore them. But I think the Armored Baron was a much better take on that type of enemy, where you could decide to wait for him to shoot, to charge up the gauntlet star fist thing he had on his where his hand should be, or you could just shoot him with the plasma rifle, or you could just shoot him with anything. Obviously the effectiveness would vary, and you were sort of gently funneled into dealing with him in a certain way, but also he was far more predictable, which made him a little bit easier to deal with when you're considering dealing with lots of other enemies. So I've talked about a few of the things I would like to see, but something I would like to see maybe a little bit less of would be activated abilities. I think they're okay in certain scenarios, but it would bother me if the gameplay loop largely revolved around them, which I don't think it will. An activated ability is something like the Sentinel Hammer. So you have a charge, you have to fill the charge up. In Doom Eternal, you get that by glory killing, breaking enemy weak points. And, I think that the intention there is fine, in the sense that you're trying to incentivize players to do what is going to help them win, right? Which is breaking enemy weak points and glory killing and doing all this sort of stuff, which is cool. But when you start to introduce a lot of those things, I think you create a sense of, it becomes a very rote gameplay loop. Okay, you have to do this in order to do this, in order to do this. And players sort of lose agency over how they approach the situation, which in a power fantasy like Doom is huge, right? Player agency should be the topmost thing that you're concerned about getting right in the game. And I know you're trying to create a very specific experience and whatnot, and it's smart to design systems that encourage players into doing things in a certain way, but also players need to feel like they've learnt something themselves of their own design. That gives them ownership, it gives them more of that power fantasy control over the experience. So I think some of them are okay, like Blood Punch was cool, Sentinel Hammer was cool, but I think going beyond that would become, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how they handle it if they do decide to go down that path. This one's going to be a little bit controversial, I think, but I would love to see them move a little bit further away from weapon swapping or weapon combos. I know, people love it. I love it too, but I've done it for 8 years, and I just want to see them try to do something new with that element of the combat. It's, you can only become an AC 130, fly around in the sky, PB rocketing everything for so long before it gets boring. I think that they are going to do something that moves a little bit further away from it. I think the shield will be kind of this consolidation of solutions to problems, right? So in Doom Eternal at the moment, you have lots of mods, lots of guns, and each mod kind of fits solving a certain problem, really, when you think about it. But I think what we're going to end up seeing is the shield will start to become a solution to a lot of problems in one tool, which from a design perspective I think makes a lot of sense. It means that new players are going to have less trouble learning the game, and I think it's a good idea. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I imagine there's going to be weapon swapping. I mean, let's be honest. Weapon swapping was always an emergent gameplay mechanic in Doom 2016 anyway. It's just in Doom Eternal, they decided to rationalize it into something that looked like a designed gameplay system rather than something emergent. So I'm sure the community will find all kinds of crazy and creative ways to play the game. We got to talk about the glory kill stingers as well. These things, they were awesome in Doom 2016. I loved them. Okay, I know not everyone liked them, especially when you had Berserk. Every time you'd kill something with Berserk, it would play the stinger. But they were so cool because it felt like you were in control of the music and the soundscape and everything that was coming together. So if we could find a way to bring those back, that would be awesome. I loved those things in Doom 2016. Thought they were so cool. The that like low droning sound that would play out whenever you get a glory kill, I thought was sick. So try to bring them back. One of the other sort of little actually, let's finish on a couple of bugbears. Okay, the last two are little bugbears. Hopefully, the first one I have no control over. That depends on playtesting. The second one though, please do this. Okay, the first one is fewer unskippable cutscenes. I know that a lot of these are built into the game based on playtesting. Like, for example, Hell on Earth, when you finish that first arena after the barge, and it plays the cutscene where it shows you the gate opening. I know it sounds really petty. It's like, dude, it's a 5-second cutscene. Yeah, but when you play the game thousands of times, and, if you're speedrunning, you're spending a lot of that time playing the first level, because the first level is really challenging, honestly, to get right in a speedrun. Watching that cutscene is like, oh, man, I know the gate's there. The value of those cutscenes is lost immediately once you know where to go. And that will happen within the first playthrough. So rather than have it play uninterrupted every playthrough when it only provides value for that first playthrough, just get rid of them. Like, let me skip them or something. So yeah, the last one, please do this. Please, I'm begging. I'm literally, well, I'm not literally, I'm sitting in my chair, but imagine I'm on my knees and I'm begging you, please, let me do this. In Doom 2016, when you picked up an action figure, when you found a toy, Doom Guy would pick the toy up, and then you could press a weapon bind and he would dismiss the toy. And regardless of that, you could still move. I can't tell you how many times I have lost a speedrun in Doom Eternal because I didn't manage to press a weapon bind on the right frame as I collected a toy, which is how we skip those animations. We have to press a weapon bind the very frame you pick up that toy. I get stuck still, I'm standing there, and demons just kill me. I'm like, wow, that was not fun. So please, can we bring back this behavior from Doom 2016? That would be amazing. So good. Anyway, because I just finished this list on a rant, it's not a rant, it's just bugbears. I want to wish all the developers at Istio all the very best developing the game. Again, I hope you guys get to build the game that you want to build and you get to take it as far as you wish. And just overall wish you all the very best. If you've enjoyed listening to this video, guys, please do chuck us a like, sub, because I'm going to be doing lots more Doom 2016, bit of Doom Eternal, I imagine, as well, and eventually Doom the Dark Ages. So peace out, keep smiling, don't do anything I wouldn't do, and bye for now.